Have you ever wondered about the man behind the name Osama bin Laden? Well, let's take a step back to the year 1957 in the bustling city of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Here we find the birth of a child in a family awash with wealth, a child who would grow to become a name known across the globe. Osama bin Laden, as this child was named, grew up privileged, ensconced in the opulence that his family's construction business provided. And yet, his life was not all gilded edges. His education, a mix of modern methods and traditional Islamic teachings, began to shape a worldview that was complex and often contradictory. The experiences of these formative years, the interplay of wealth, education, and faith, were the building blocks that constructed the man bin Laden would eventually become. A man who would spark controversy, incite fear, and become a notorious figure worldwide. These early years formed the foundation of the man who would become a notorious figure worldwide. So, how did this young man from a privileged background become the face of international terrorism? Bin Laden's transformation wasn't overnight. Born into a wealthy Saudi family, he was far from the impoverished, desperate stereotype of a terrorist. Yet, it was in the crucible of the Soviet-Afghan War where bin Laden's radicalization truly began. He saw the conflict as a holy war, a battle between the Muslim world and the invading Soviets. This perspective led him to form Maktab al-Khidmat, an organization dedicated to recruiting and funding foreign fighters. As the war ended, he turned this network into al-qaeda, a group that would become synonymous with global terrorism. Alongside this, bin Laden's interpretation of Islam, heavily influenced by controversial figures like Abdullah Azzam and Ayman al-Zawahiri, veered towards extremism. His ideology, combined with the power he wielded, proved to be a volatile mix. This period marked a drastic shift in bin Laden's life, setting him on a path of violence and destruction. But what was it about bin Laden that made him such a feared figure? As the leader of al-Qaeda, bin Laden orchestrated a series of devastating terrorist attacks that shook the world. His strategic planning and unyielding ideologies led to the execution of events that brought nations to their knees. His reign was not merely about spreading terror, but about making a statement. Each attack was a message, a challenge to the world order. The ripple effects of these acts of terror were felt globally, from the political landscapes shifting drastically to the emergence of stringent security measures worldwide. The fear and chaos bin Laden and his organization spread were not confined to the locations of the attacks. They permeated borders, impacting societies, economies, and individuals far and wide. His actions led to a new era of global insecurity and suspicion, forever changing the way we view the world. Bin Laden's reign of terror left a mark on the world that will not be forgotten. But every reign has an end, doesn't it? So it was with bin Laden. His final years were marked by a relentless global manhunt, culminating in his death in 2011. The world watched in collective anticipation as news of the operation spread. The man who had cast such a long, dark shadow over the world was no more. But what was the aftermath? Bin Laden's death sent shockwaves through the ranks of al-Qaeda. His absence created a void, a power vacuum that triggered infighting and fragmentation within the organization. Yet, it was not the end of global terrorism. New leaders emerged, new groups formed, each carrying a piece of bin Laden's legacy. His death marked a significant turning point, the end of an era. Yet his influence, his ideology, continues to echo in the corners of our world. Bin Laden's death marked the end of an era, but his influence continues to resonate in today's world.